Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time we're exploring something you might not expect. The connection between Phil Collins and Led Zeppelin's John Bonham.
Two iconic drummers.
Yeah, and we're going to uncover, I think, some surprising links between them. Their career paths were very different, but there's a lot of mutual respect and admiration there.
Yeah, for sure.
Even with Bonham's legacy being so hard rock and, Collins having a lot of success in the pop world.
Yeah.
So get ready for some unexpected stories. Even a little bit of rivalry sprinkled in there.
Yeah, it is really interesting when we think about musicians and how quickly we put them into boxes just based on genre or their public image.
Totally.
But when we look closer, we often find these really fascinating relationships that challenge those easy assumptions that we make.
Absolutely. So for anyone who maybe needs a little refresher, John Bonham, obviously renowned for his powerful drumming in Led Zeppelin. And Phil Collins rose to fame with Genesis and then later on huge solo success. But one of the things that just blew my mind when I was reading about this was that Collins actually saw Bonham perform live even before Led Zeppelin existed.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It's crazy.
Like way before.
Yeah.
He was playing with a band called Band of Joy.
Band of Joy.
And Collins was so blown away by his performance that he gave him a standing ovation.
Wow.
Which is pretty significant because from what I've read, Collins isn't exactly known for being like outwardly expressive,
Right.
especially
Not a super emotive guy.
Yeah, not like jumping up and down for just anyone.
Yeah.
So that really shows you the level of talent that Bonham had even at that really early stage.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like it wasn't just the Led Zeppelin machine that made him this incredible drummer.
Right.
Like he already had that something special that even back then just captivated Collins.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because even when Collins' own musical journey took him in a much different direction, he always cited Bonham as a major influence.
Absolutely. And you even picked When the Levee Breaks, one of Bonham's most famous performances as a standout track, like a perfect example of what made him so unique.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that track, to me, just perfectly exemplifies his genius.
Yeah.
The power, the groove, that almost otherworldly sound that he got from the drums.
Totally.
It's no wonder that he influenced so many drummers, and Collins is definitely, one of them.
And for anyone who hasn't heard it, it features this incredible drum sound that he achieved by recording his kit in a stairwell.
It's legendary.
Yeah, and using ambient microphones to capture the reverberation of the space.
Oh, wow.
So it created this huge, almost mystical sound that became like a signature part of his style.
It's so recognizable.
Yeah.
Immediately it's Bonham.
Right away.
Yeah, and it's not even just the technical side of it, right?
Totally.
There's this raw energy and this attitude that I think really resonated with Collins. So it's fascinating to me to see these two drummers with such contrasting styles and career paths still having this underlying, connection and respect and admiration for each other.
Right. But, no relationship is without its complexities.
Of course.
There's also a little hint of rivalry in the mix, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's that famous story about Bonham being kind of annoyed at losing a drummer's pull to Collins.
Oh, yeah.
In Melody Maker magazine.
Oh, in Melody Maker.
And apparently he made his son, Jason Bonham, learn the drum part to Collins' Turn It On Again.
Oh, wow.
Almost to be like, oh, that's not even that hard.
Right.
Like kind of downplaying it.
Yeah.
So you get a little glimpse into his competitive side.
For sure.
But it also highlights how both drummers were really considered top tier in their time, right?
Yeah.
Like they were pushing the boundaries of what drumming could be, even though it was in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, we have the legendary Live Aid performance in 1985.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a moment where
Yeah,
things
excellent.
get really interesting.
So we've got the surviving members of Led Zeppelin reuniting for this massive global event.
Right.
And they choose Phil Collins to fill in on drums.
Wow. Talk about stepping into some legendary shoes.
I know.
The pressure must have been immense.
Yeah.
It's not just any gig, it's Live Aid.
Right.
Millions and millions of people watching worldwide.
Yeah.
The weight of Bonham's legacy, it's almost Shakespearean in its drama.
It really is. And it's a moment that reveals a lot about how both Bonham and Collins were perceived by the music world. But before we dive into that Live Aid performance and all the aftermath, I think it's worth taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture of the music industry at that time.
Yeah, for sure. So the early 80s, you had this real shift happening in the music scene.
Yeah.
Punk and new wave were starting to emerge.
Yeah.
And that kind of, hard rock sound that Zeppelin epitomized, it was starting to feel a little dated to some people.
Right.
And it's interesting to think about how Bonham, with his really powerful blues-influenced style, how he might have navigated those changing trends if he'd lived.
It really makes you wonder if he felt like maybe his style of drumming was getting eclipsed a little bit by some of these newer trends.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that, maybe that adds another layer to his reaction to Collins' success.
Yeah.
Like maybe it wasn't just personal rivalry.
Yeah.
Maybe it was also a bit of, the ground shifting beneath him, so to speak.
Totally. And it wasn't just the music styles changing.
Yeah,
it was drumming itself.
Yeah.
Drummers like Collins were starting to incorporate more electronic elements, experimenting with different sounds and textures.
And this all leads us back to Live Aid, where you almost have these two different approaches to drumming, these two different eras of music kind of colliding on stage.
Right.
And it's important to remember Collins wasn't the only drummer there that day.
Oh, that's right.
Tony Thompson, this phenomenal session drummer.
Yeah, amazing drummer.
Yeah, known for his work with Chic and Power Station. He was also part of that Led Zeppelin reunion.
Wow, so you have two drummers with these very distinct styles.
Right.
And also like different levels of familiarity with the material.
Right.
I mean, that must have created a pretty interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to add in, the pressure of performing these iconic songs for a global audience.
Absolutely. It's interesting because from what I've read, Collins has said that he actually felt pretty confident going into the performance.
Okay.
He had seen Zeppelin early on. He knew the material.
Right.
But there was very little rehearsal time.
Yeah.
And it seems like there were some disagreements about how the song should be approached.
Right. So Page later on expressed some dissatisfaction with the performance, suggesting that Collins hadn't really captured the essence of Bonham's drumming.
Yeah, like he didn't quite nail it.
Right.
But it's important to consider Collins's perspective, too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's talked about feeling like a spare part with Thompson also on stage.
Right, two drummers.
And that the lack of rehearsal time made it really difficult to gel with the band.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, was Page's criticism purely about the musical performance, or was there something more to it?
Yeah, like what else was going on?
Was there this kind of sense of, protectiveness over Bonham's legacy?
Right.
Like this feeling that no one could ever truly do those songs justice?
That's an interesting thought. Maybe Page was viewing the performance through the lens of Bonham's absence.
Yeah.
And that would make it really hard to kind of objectively assess Collins' drumming.
Yeah, that's true.
And, we can't forget about the context of the whole event itself.
Right.
This wasn't just a Led Zeppelin concert. It was a global humanitarian effort.
So much pressure.
Yeah, huge stakes.
It really makes you think about the weight of expectations that was on everyone's shoulders that day.
Yeah.
And while the Live Aid performance might have gotten some mixed reviews, it's important to remember that this wasn't the end of the story for Collins and the surviving members of Led Zeppelin. In fact, Collins actually played a really significant role in helping Robert Plant launch his solo career.
Oh, that's right. And Plant has spoken really highly of Collins's contributions.
He's both.
Both musically and personally.
Yeah, he's called him like a driving force and a source of positive energy during a really difficult time for him.
Wow.
It's such a testament to their friendship that Collins, who was like at the peak of his own solo success,
totally
would take the time to support Plant in this way.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to replace Bonham or anything.
No.
He was offering his talent and friendship to a fellow musician, who is navigating some pretty uncharted territory.
It's really cool. Yeah. And I think it's kind of why Plant's perspective on that Live Aid performance is so different from Page's.
Oh, interesting.
Page seems to be more focused on the technical aspects and the legacy of Bonham's drumming.
Right.
But Plant was maybe more attuned to the emotional support that Collins offered.
It reminds us that music isn't just about notes or technical skills. It's also about connection and expression and shared experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes those connections, they go beyond the music itself, and they create these bonds of friendship and mutual respect that can last through some really challenging times.
It makes you realize that music can really bring people together.
It does.
In some pretty unexpected ways. But before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more thread we need to pull at.
Okay.
It involves a comment that Robert Plant made recently that has some fans raising their eyebrows.
Oh, what did he say?
He talked about how Led Zeppelin was, quote, a lot to live up to. And how he felt a bit lost after the band ended.
Wow.
Which kind of gives us a whole new perspective, I think, on the dynamics at play.
Right.
Especially during that Live Aid performance.
Yeah, definitely. Let's delve into Plant's perspective a bit more and see how that might reframe our understanding of that whole pivotal moment.
I mean, it's pretty powerful for Plant to just come out and say that Led Zeppelin was a lot to live up to. You know, it makes you think about the pressure that he must have felt after Bonham's death and the band ending.
Oh, absolutely.
To be part of something so groundbreaking, so iconic, and then have it suddenly end.
Right.
That's a lot for anyone to process.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to even imagine trying to figure out what to do next.
Right. And then on top of it all, you're trying to launch a solo career.
Exactly.
With everyone comparing you to that legendary past.
It's no wonder that he felt lost.
Not at all. And I think that's where Collins' support becomes even more meaningful.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't just about the music.
Right.
It was about being there for a friend.
Yeah, offering that camaraderie.
Exactly, like just understanding what he was going through.
Yeah, providing a space for him to just be himself, you know?
And maybe that's why Plant's take on the Live Aid performance is so different from Page's.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, Page seemed to be hung up on the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Like how it measured up to Bonham's drumming.
Right, right.
But Plant was more focused on the emotional side of it.
Yeah, like the support that Collins was giving him.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that music is about more than just notes and being technically perfect.
Totally.
It's about those connections.
Yeah.
The way music can help us express ourselves.
And those shared experiences.
And sometimes those connections even go beyond the music itself.
Yeah, you form these bonds of friendship and respect.
Yeah.
That can help you through anything.
This whole deep dive has really made me think about how we see musicians.
Yeah.
How we try to fit them into these neat little boxes.
Right.
Based on genre or their image.
Yeah, we label everything.
But when we look closer,
yeah,
there's always so much more to the story.
Absolutely.
These connections and histories that go way deeper than those simple labels.
Both Bonham and Collins were amazing drummers.
Oh, yeah.
Who had a huge impact on music history.
For sure. But beyond that, they were human beings.
Yeah.
With their own struggles and insecurities.
Just trying to find their way in a really crazy industry.
So, as we wrap up this exploration of Phil Collins and John Bonham, what are some key takeaways?
Well, I think we've learned that even when musical paths seem totally different,
right,
they can intersect in some really surprising ways.
Yeah.
And even when you have rivalry and different opinions, there can still be that foundation of respect and admiration.
And I think we got a glimpse into the human side of these legendary figures.
For sure.
That even the biggest stars face challenges and need support from their friends.
So here's something to think about.
Okay.
How often do the assumptions we make about artists prevent us from really appreciating their work?
A good question.
Yeah, how can we challenge those assumptions and discover those hidden connections and passions that make music so special?
Keep listening.
Yeah.
Keep exploring. Keep an open mind. You never know what you'll find.
Exactly.
Until next time, happy deep diving.